Good morning, everyone. I really enjoying my coffee a little more this morning. A good friend of mine recently took a trip in one of his classic vehicles, and they went down into Florida, and he found some Kona coffee down there. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, do you want a pound of Kona?" I said, "Sure, man, bring me some Kona." And so he brought me some. Oh, boy, I love Kona coffee. Um, it's just so smooth. I mean, and this is an unpaid commercial here, by the way. uh, it's, pardon me, it's some of the smoothest coffee I've ever had. And I don't fix it every morning. I'm not using up that pound regularly. Number one, it's caffeine. And so I'm going to be careful that way. But secondly, I don't want to use it all up. I just, I use it when I get to the office. I go, okay, got to use some Kona this morning. And so that's what I did this morning. All right. Thanks again for joining me. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I do appreciate you being with me here for my morning musings. We are examining the feast days of Israel. And what I've been doing over the last several videos, last several days, weeks actually, is examining how from Pentecost onward, the New Testament writers were anticipating the imminent judgment in fulfillment of the Feast of Trumpets. Now, as I shared with you yesterday and in previous videos as well, we have to understand that the last three feast days of Israel, Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, were so inextricably bound up. And in my book that I had mentioned before, and it's on special price, all right, The Resurrection Feast Fulfilled. It's a study of the last of Israel's feast days. And yes, I'm very familiar with Shemini Atzerat. Okay, but nonetheless, an examination of Sukkot and its connection with resurrection. But you see, you cannot sharply delineate, because Feast of Trumpets announcing judgment would lead to judgment, would lead to atonement. That's just the way the Jews thought of it. Feast of Trumpets leads directly to Sukkot. That is to say, atonement leads directly to Sukkot. So you just cannot, you just cannot go in there, oh, well, Yom Teruah has nothing to do with Yom Kippur. That's just not the way it was done. That's not the way it was thought of. Okay, I've got to hurry here. Yesterday, I shared with you, and the point being here, that from Pentecost onward, the New Testament writers were living in anticipation of the imminent, the soon coming judgment. In other words, the fulfillment of Yom Teruah, the fulfillment of the Feast of Trumpets. Now, by the way, let me make this point. The Feast of Trumpets, as I just suggested, is tied up inextricably with the other two final feast days. How do I know that? Well, 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52. At the last trumpet, mortality would put on immortality. That's resurrection. Trumpets, resurrection. Trumpets, Sukkot. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. Christ would come at the sounding of the great trumpet. Resurrection. Trumpets, resurrection. Matthew chapter 24, verse 31. At the coming of the Lord in that generation, the Son of Man will send forth his angels. They shall gather together the elect with a shout and with the sounding of the great trumpet. Well, that's a direct reference back to Isaiah 27, verse 13, 12 and 13, which is a resurrection prophecy. So we have trumpets, resurrection, establishing, once again, the inseparability of the final three feast days. You just can't do that. All right. Sort of sharing with you yesterday, and we're still discussing the in Taxei, the about to be, the shortly come to pass, coming of the Lord, judgment and resurrection. In Revelation chapter 1, verse 1, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him to show to him the things which must shortly, in Taxei, come to pass. I've shared with you how some commentators, a frightening number of them actually, say, well, what that passage means is God was simply informing Jesus to tell the churches, you don't know, I don't know, which would mean the Father would not know, when these things would actually come to pass. But when they finally get around to coming to fruition, boy, it will happen in rapid sequence. Now listen, in Revelation chapter 11, we are told that one seal follows another quickly, rapidly. Okay, that's fine. Nobody's denying that. The question is, when would those things begin to come to pass? When would they be fulfilled? Now, yesterday, I pointed out to you that it's absolutely critical to honor the fact, to be aware of the fact. It took me years, this was one of those things. What do they call that? A Kodak moment? Sitting at my desk, I was reading, and I was going over Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. And all of a sudden, it's like the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave to him. That's the Father informing Jesus, these things must shortly come to pass. Well, if Jesus, in Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, if Jesus didn't know the time, then what is happening in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1? The Father is informing him. Hello? Not only that, notice this. In Revelation 14, 6 and following, John says, I saw a mighty angel flying through the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, to preach to every nation and kindred, tongue, and tribe, saying, Babylon is fallen, for the hour. Wait a minute. Who's giving this revelation? The Father. What did the Father know? The Father knew the day and the hour, didn't he? So it's the Father in Revelation 14 sending the angel to proclaim the hour of her, Babylon's, judgment has come. Now look, folks, if you identify Babylon as any city and every city, as has been ridiculously suggested, if that's how you identify Babylon, then 2,000 years ago, the Father said the hour of her judgment had arrived back then. There is not one single word to imply, to suggest, to intimate, or to hint that the judgment of Babylon, which had arrived in Revelation 14, was being said to be, one of these millennia, 2, 3, 4,000 years, 10,000 years, 5,000, whatever, will finally arrive then. No. That's not what the text says. Matter of fact, it's interesting on two levels. But it's interesting that the incredible scholar by the name of Gregory Beale, in his commentary on Revelation, says Revelation 14 teaches us that the Father was revealing the hour of the judgment to the Son. The time that Jesus did not know about in Matthew chapter 24, verse 36, was now being revealed to the Son. But then Gregory Beale flies way off into left field and says that time hasn't come yet. Well, if the Father was revealing the time, the hour, to Jesus in Revelation 14, and in Revelation chapter 1, it's the Father revealing these things must shortly come to pass, then how do we extrapolate that 2,000 years in the future? And here's what that means. In Colossians chapter 2, 17, when Paul said, the new moons, the feast days, the Sabbaths were about to be fulfilled. Their typological meaning was about to be fulfilled. One of those feast days was, Rosh Hashanah, the announcement of the judgment. It was about to take place, Colossians 2:17. Book of Revelation, which was written only a few years after Colossians, by the way. What's happening? The Father is revealing these things, the judgment, the fulfillment of trumpets must shortly come to pass. I want to say this as kindly and as respectfully as possible. When you have to go to the book of Revelation, or any other book for that matter, and you have to destroy an entire vocabulary of words, terms, phrases, when you have to rip it out of its historical context, and that context which communicates, as we'll see momentarily, the time has arrived, and say, well, no, it hasn't. Not really. We're still looking for that time of fulfillment. When you have to do that, your eschatology is false. Pure, simple, undeniable. And of course, it would be said, no, I'm placing it in its proper context, and that's just simply false. The Father did not tell Jesus to tell the churches, one of these days, these things will shortly come to pass. And he didn't tell John or Jesus to tell the churches the hour for the judgment will come one day. He said the hour of her judgment, which the hour of her judgment occurs, by the way, at the coming of the Lord, the judgment and the resurrection. So the Father was not revealing that one of these days I will reveal the time, the hour. No. He was saying the hour has come. It was there 2,000 years ago. Let me drive this home. Revelation chapter 1, verse 3. Blessed is the one who reads, understands, and keeps the sayings of this word, for... Now that word is very, very important. It means because. Blessed is the one who reads, understands, and keeps the sayings of this word, of this book, because the time is at hand. Now, some of those who try to detract, mitigate, destroy the time statements, they like to say, God's time is always here because God is always around us. Christ's presence, parousia, is always near. Well, that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry, I have to be blunt here. It's just ridiculous. Why? Because the Father told Jesus to tell the churches, point number one, these things must shortly come to pass for the time. Now, the word time there is an incredibly important word in the Bible, both the Septuagint and the New Testament, and it's the word kairos. And it means the divinely appointed time. So what was the Father, who knew the day and the hour, telling Jesus to tell the churches? These things must shortly come to pass because the divinely appointed time, for the fulfillment, has arrived. Not it will arrive in 2,000 years. The time, divinely appointed time for the fulfillment has arrived. And as we shall see tomorrow, without any question whatsoever, any attempt to negate the absolute necessity that he was talking about, the imminent judgment, is simply specious, it's false, and let me say again, it's ridiculous. So, I'll see you on the flip side.